You're listening to the Last Rites podcast.
You wanted to stay, you canceled the sun. We hide underground and worship a gun. White cousin, when we're we shared are all in the past. The all-seeing eye is closing at last. White cousin, when we're
You're listening to Last Rites.
they come with pink eyes and lily white skin. They hide underground and burrow within. White cousins, come find us
Welcome to the Last Rites podcast, the official podcast for Last Rites, your source for heavy metal commentary and criticism. You can visit us on the web at Last Rites, that's last, RIT.es. And on Twitter, we are Your Last Rites, twitter.com/Your Last Rites. You've just heard White Cousin by Slough Feg off their 2009 album Ape Uprising. Here on Last Rites a few weeks ago, we published A Devil's Dozen, the 13 songs by the Lord Weird Slough Feg that we felt were worthy of recognition. I have on the mic with me today Zach, Michael, and Ian from the Last Rites crew. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on Slough Feg?
Well, what do you want to talk about? I mean, I think they're one of the probably top 3 active U.S. metal bands today, personally. And I think it's because, as much as people will say that they sound exactly like, Iron Maiden crossed with Thin Lizzy, I don't know. I think they do the style pretty innovatively. And there's always something different from album to album, It's always, you can always tell it's Slough Feg, obviously, whenever within the first probably minute of a song, but each album has some subtle differences that just keeps things fresh every single time an album comes out. There's not a lot of bands that I get like squirrely over hearing about a new album about to drop, but they're definitely one of them. And their live show, I've been sort of spoiled in that I've spent a good bit of time in the Bay Area and get to see them kind of at the drop of a hat and their incredible shows greatly outweigh the shows where, one or two guys end up getting a little too hammered and just stumbling around. But even those shows are fun. They're always fun live, I think.
Yeah, they're a blast live. Everybody in the band just acts completely bonkers live and has a blast with it, and the crowd has a blast with it.
Yeah.
So
The last time I saw him play a couple months ago in a little tiny place called Eli's in Oakland, I would say there was probably 30 people there, if 30, and Scalzi told the longest joke I have ever heard him. It was just painfully long. It was so long that people were like, well, I might as well go to the bathroom, and people went outside to smoke or whatever, and it had just the worst punchline on the planet too. But he doesn't care, and I love that. I love that about him.
Now, when did they switch their name from the Lord Weird Slough Feg to just Slough Feg?
I don't know, let me see. I think it was...
2 albums ago.
Was it on Atavism, I think?
I think
Yeah, it was
so.
2005. Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever been an official change for them. I think it was more just a piece of convenience than anything.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to say the whole thing all the time.
Yeah.
So
And it's better-
they would still, think of themselves as or answer to either.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Like if you were talking about them and referred to them as the Lord Weird Slough Feg, they certainly wouldn't say anything bad about it. I'm sure they don't care. They're laid back folks.
So we highlighted 13 tracks: Trick of the Vicar, Highlander, Hard Worlder, I Will Kill You, You Will Die, Warrior's Dawn, Slough Feg, Ape Uprising, the Vargir theme, Confrontation, Sky Chariots, Hiberno Latin Invasion, High Passage, Low Passage, Tiger Tiger, and Traders and Gunboats. Obviously, that's a great place to get started if you're not familiar with the band, but do any of you guys have a favorite track that was maybe left off of this list?
Not me personally. I think I was surprised not to see White Cousin hit it, because that just was, it's such a bright, they're sort of well known for bright and bouncy, but that tune takes it to another level. But I was definitely I'm a fan of every one of the songs that we picked, without a doubt. My favorite album. I don't know, if somebody were to ask me, give me an album to start with, I would probably choose Traveler to start with, even though I think, and I say that because it's, on a whole, the record as a whole works the best all, from front to back for me. It's the best at telling a story, and the songs flow one to the other, the best on that one. I think it's really strong start to finish. But other albums have songs that particular songs that I like better, if that makes sense.
No, totally. Now, have any of you heard the single that they released back in July?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I bought the 7-inch when I went to see them at that Eli show. It's a great song too.
Now, do we have any rumors on when they're coming out with a new album? Or is that...
I saw something late last week.
Recording.
I think that, let me see if I can find it it just says rough mixes. So
Okay.
Rough mixes are done, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see something. I would imagine it's not going to be until early part of next year, but who knows?
Their drummer's on Twitter all the time, and I think he said something about it, but I can't remember specifically what.
Yeah, Harry.
Yeah, Harry's a hoot.
He's the best. Harry's the best.
Dude's a hell of a drummer too.
He has certainly brought. Yeah, that's always been sort of a I think tough area for that band, is that they have a hard time keeping a drummer behind that kit. And the guy that played on Hard Worlder, I always talk about that story about how I saw them play in San Francisco on the Hard Worlder album, and the drummer that they had, I think he had just kind of signed aboard, but he was just not having a very good night, and that was the night that Scalzi stomped off. He was just fed up with it and stomped off and ended the show early. And then Harry joined up, and he's just been I think he's a perfect fit for that band. Perfect.
Excellent. Well, we will keep our ears open and our eyes peeled for more news on upcoming Slough Feg material. let's go ahead and jump into material that is coming out right now in September. And let's take a listen to a song from the new self-titled album by Satyricon. This is Walker Upon the Wind. You're listening to Last Rites.
Born by a thought, fly from a thunder of wars, swirling, 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 friendly, friendly, friendly. Ultimate Destroyer, unspeakable adventure, walker upon the wind, hunting, piercing the ultimate, roaring, walker upon the wind. Son of a tornado, he lights in the slumber of clouds. Morn, bad, at dawn, a curse one torn, one marred, one lasted. Ultimate Destroyer, unspeakable affection. Walker upon the wind, hunting, piercing the ultimate, roaring, walker upon the wind.
This is the Last Rites podcast.
I haven't heard a Satyricon album since Rebel Extravaganza.
Ooh.
And some people tell me I'm dumb for that, and some people tell me I'm smart for that. I've heard a couple singles, but that's it.
It depends on your opinion of the direction that the band has gone since that time. I mean, if you like black and roll, then you're missing out.
It's not so much the direction, it's the fact that I like early Satyricon, but I would not put it on the level of some of the other big acts from the era.
No.
I would never say that Dark Medieval Times is nearly as good as In the Nightside Eclipse.
No, of course not. Well, I mean, that's, one of the all-time towering whatevers.
It's so weird. I didn't hear Age of Nero. I did hear Now Diabolical, but this new one, I cannot decide whether it's stuff that I'm enjoying listening to, or it's really, the pace is really slow. It's hardly even black and roll anymore. It's more like sort of,
moving
death rockish a little bit. It feels sort of death
really dark and weird.
Yeah, and it's super repetitive too. It's pretty insidious as far as the hooks are concerned. You just have to listen to it for a long time for it to really make a mark. And that's like the choice that you have to make in the modern world now. Yeah. Like, how long am I going to listen to this album?
Yeah.
Right.
No, you're right, because there's so much other stuff coming down the pike. I mean, it's tough.
What do I know? I like the new Watain, so.
I that one's in my queue to listen to as well.
I like the ballad. That's the only song I really like on it, though.
I think the ballad's a great song.
The one that everyone hates.
It's good. It's a great ballad.
Oh, I'm totally on board with black metal bands, experimenting. It doesn't all have to be true cult. So
well, and we knew they were tits before they changed their style, so it's not like it should have been a surprise that they were going to do something like this.
Right.
It is weird. I mean, Frost.
Put that on the podcast.
Frost is known for playing fast, so it's kind of weird. It feels like he's
playing
just with one arm.
Yeah.
Oh, on the Satyricon?
Yeah.
Well, I felt that way on the last few albums of theirs. If you want to hear Frost playing fast, you have to listen to 1349.
Yeah. Has anybody seen them live?
And I'd rather not listen to 1349.
Really? Oh, I love.
I think they kind of
what was the last one? Demonium or something about demons. I thought that was a great album.
I don't listen to them on album, but I enjoy them live. Live, they put on a pretty damn good show. The two times I've seen them.
Demon Noir was the name of the album that I was trying to think of.
Yeah, I don't think I've listened to an album of theirs since probably Beyond the Apocalypse, I think was what. Yeah, that's what it was called, Beyond the Apocalypse.
Okay, Hellfire is in pretty common rotation for me.
See, Hellfire is the one I've heard that didn't do a lot for me, but
all right.
Maybe it's time for a revisit because it's been 8-9 years since that came out.
Quite a while. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yep, 2005.
Wow. Yeah. Hey. Let's talk about things that are coming out in September. Satyricon is obviously one of them. September 17, obviously big release day, some big names going out. One of them is Ulcerate, which I gave a 9.5 to in a review. Has anyone else had a chance to check that out yet? Have differing opinions? I know that Jordan Campbell also wrote a review of it for Angry Metal Guy, and he gave it 4.0 out of 5, a largely positive review. Does anyone else have an opinion? Did anyone hate it?
I've never heard of
it. I think Everything is Fire is a modern classic. I liked Destroyers of All when I first heard it, but the more I listened to it, the more it kind of bored me to tears. The new one I think is quite a bit better, but I think they need to diversify their guitar attack a little. It's all really starting to sound the same to me. And granted, I like it. I think the new one is beastly, but I'm not remembering a lot of it after I listen to it. And I've tried to listen to it a lot. It might hurt that some of the promos that came out in the same week were like the new Argus, who I'm a huge fan of, and the new Atlantean Codex, which is just amazing.
Oh yeah, those came out 3 days in a row. Ulcerate, Atlantean Codex, and Argus.
And the Ruins of Beverast came out
something else that came out right then too. It was great.
It was the Beverast.
Yes.
That's right.
And so you had, two obvious album of the year contenders for me, and the Ulcerate, which I liked, but it did two things for me. It renewed my faith in them a bit, while kind of also reinforcing my belief that they're merely a very good band, not an elite band. But that's just to me. I know some people go, like Keith, you're just batshit about them, and I understand it.
Yeah.
They're quite unique. I mean, when I first listened to them, I'm like, it sounds like Immolation and Gorguts. But then the more you listen to it, you're like, it doesn't. It's they got their own thing going on. I'm just having a hard time hearing a differentiation in their riff writing. But then again, if you listen to Immolation's entire career, Bob Vigna's essentially written 10 different riffs his entire career, but they've surrounded it with really good, stellar songwriting.
Yeah, somehow they've never put out a bad album. Speaking of Gorguts also with an album last Tuesday. Gorguts Colored Sands also just dropped a huge death metal album. It seems that September has been a month for extreme death metal. And I highly recommend that everyone read the interview that we have posted with Luke LeMay of Gorguts. Check it out on Last Rites. That's lastrit.es. Read it up.
Boy, that album, huh? That album just won't quit.
It's incredible.
Every corner. I mean, it's just, I was talking to a friend of mine a few nights ago about that album. It's just, I can take one song off that album and just kind of just replay it over the course of a day, you know? I can't really comprehend the album as a whole yet. It's just there's too much information hitting me.
It's amazingly dense.
It in pieces.
It's amazingly dense and yet so well written. I mean,
yeah.
And every part of it is so well written. I'm still amazed by Colin Marston's bass playing on that. That's been one of the continually really exciting parts about that for me, is listening to that.
Oh, definitely one of the strongest performances that he's laid down so far.
Yeah.
And that the quiet instrumental that it's just amazing.
Oh, the like movie soundtrack, the orchestra piece.
Oh, it sounds like. I realize, having read the interview, I know that it's influenced by
Shostakovich.
But when I first heard it, I thought, well, first it sounds like a Godzilla soundtrack, and then it sounds like Sweeney Todd. Now I can't remember. Stephen Sondheim is the one that I was thinking of.
That tune is great, though. It's perfect. It's perfectly, you know, the way it sits right in the middle of the album like that. It's like you think you're getting a breather, but it's just as affecting as the rest of the hard stuff on the album, you know?
The Battle of Chamdo is the name of the track.
Yeah.
And then Enemies of Compassion is just absolutely monstrous afterwards. I think that's one of the best tunes on the whole album. I'm going to kill my
that album's going to have legs. That album's going to have serious legs for sure.
It's just so deep. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what he set out to do, is make it like an audio mandala. It's just something you can, audibly stare at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure would like to see them live, that's for sure.
And they're coming.
Death Fest next year.
I don't really, and you guys know me, I don't really care about technical death metal. There's very few bands that can turn my head in that world. But when they do, boy, an album like that, whenever that mood happens to strike me, that's what I'm going to be turning to for quite some time now.
Has anyone heard the new Annihilator?
No, being an old school guy, I never really got into Annihilator all that much.
So what else is coming out in September that we ought to mention? Has anyone heard Nine Inch Nails? Does anyone care?
Dan Hammer does.
Dan would if he was on.
Unfortunately, he's not on. It's one that I definitely want to hear because I'm interested, but I have not heard it yet.
Another album that comes out in September, it would be worth mentioning the Sub Rosa.
Yeah.
Oh, Sub Rosa.
It's really, really good.
I haven't even heard it yet.
Yeah, I think it's actually better than the last one was phenomenal. And I think, well, I don't know. It's too early to tell. I haven't really given it, as many listens as I'd like to, but boy, is it dark and good.
Wow. Oh, and it comes out the same day as Carcass and everything else.
That day is packed. I mean, there's Grave Miasma that day too. Windhand comes out that day.
Yes, Windhand. Very much looking forward to that too.
I'm generally over that style, but that sounded pretty good.
Pinkish Black is coming out that day.
Oh, sweet. Yep.
Yeah, Windhand is no band. Their new record's called Soma, and nothing. It really sounds like being high after house and pharmaceuticals, like that band. So I applaud them for the appropriate titling of their album.
Interesting.
Right.
Tear also comes out that day. Captain, you want to review that one?
Oh, that's right, Tear.
No, I do not. Well, I would. Well,
I think
I give them a shot every time they put out an album, because it's not. I mean, it's they play their instruments well and all that stuff, but it just, again, look at the album cover and it's just.
You give them a shot. I need a shot of fucking espresso whenever that shit's on. It's so boring.
It really is.
I've got some friends that are just all into them. Have tried to get me into them. And I'm thinking to myself, can I just listen to Moon Sorrow? Can I just listen to something epic and exciting instead of something that's, I don't know.
Not epic and exciting?
Yeah, not epic and exciting, but thinks it's epic and exciting.
I don't understand the appeal. Yeah.
So what the fuck?
They have some good albums. I thought Ragnarok was a great album.
I mean, they're like the Viking metal equivalent of like Hymn, where it's just like I do not understand the appeal. I just absolutely do not understand the appeal. Like, why do you want to have something that's like so static? I guess is the fairest way I can put that.
I suppose.
Yep.
Really,
they got to figure out a way to combine a heart with a Mjolnir. Now you get it? Yeah, all right.
Oh, Zach.
Yeah. I'm bad at this.
If we have a soundboard, can we have a groan there?
Yeah, we need to whop, whop.
How about Vistacino?
That's a great album.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why it's getting so much flack by the rest of the metal press.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't get it. I think it ends better than it starts, but I think even the start of it is pretty good. But it's just a perfect summer album.
It's an album that you throw on just that background music and to vibe out to. I think people that are listening to it super hard, expecting another Caius album, are just going into it with the wrong intentions. Which I mean, that's probably why people are so disappointed. But yeah, I mean, it's fine. Just switch off your brain and have fun with it.
Yeah, what did people expect? I haven't really read a lot of the press.
Probably expected Caius.
But I mean, it's not a stretch. I mean, you listen to that album, somebody, you might not say, hey, is this a new Caius? But it has all the elements there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems of being a metal critic is that, I mean, it's so hard to write about that type of stuff without, like, if I wrote that Vistacino review and I did not drop that it was ex-Caius members,
yep, like
I would be savaged by the readership. That's like something that you have to kind of go into and kind of, unfortunately, that's like something that you have to write about, that you're forced to, even though that you really don't want to.
Because it's less relevant.
It just doesn't matter. I mean, if you're looking at metal, like you're keeping statistics like it's the back of a baseball card, like, yeah, sure. Go that route. Do that thing. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. But in the end, I mean, it just absolutely doesn't matter. I mean, same thing with people that are disappointed with Carcass because they don't think it's a solid comeback album,
All right. So let's segue into that. Obviously, tomorrow, Surgical Steel drops the first Carcass album in 15 years? 13 years? How many years is it? Many years.
Last one came out in 96.
Okay. 4, 7. That makes it 17 years. 17 years. The return of Carcass. Many people were terrified after the less than successful return of some other bands. We'll jump into that topic in a minute. But Surgical Steel comes out the 17th of September in the United States, the 13th in Europe as a whole, and the 15th in, what did you say, Great Britain?
Yeah, 16th in the UK.
Anyway, Carcass, Surgical Steel. What has been hailed as a huge comeback for the band. People did not expect it. The band is currently a trio of Jeff Walker on bass and vocals, Bill Steer on guitars, and also with some vocal additions, and the young man Daniel Wilding on drums. Gentlemen, how have you found Surgical Steel? I'll allow you to speak first and then give my opinion.
Well, I've only listened to the streams that sort of recently hit up, and I came in very cautiously because of, well, I don't know, maybe Jeff Walker and Defluffers, scared me a lot from back in the day, and I was questioning whether or not they could still be relevant today, but I I think it sounds pretty phenomenal. I don't know how you could be a Carcass. I mean, I guess there's Carcass fans from back in the day that would like to hear something that's just raw as shit. But if you're a fan of like, Heartwork, necroticism era, I don't really understand how you could walk away not happy with, at least 3/4 of that album.
Does everyone want to name their favorite Carcass album? And there are only 3 acceptable answers.
Uh-oh.
The correct answer is necroticism.
The correct answer is Heartwork, but
Correct answer is Heartwork.
But I will accept Heartwork, Necroticism, or Symphonies of Sickness. If you tell me that your favorite Carcass album is Reek of Putrefaction, you can leave the hall.
I will log out right now.
Yeah, Reek sucks. I'm sorry. It's unlistenable.
That's kind of the point, though.
Yeah, exactly.
That can be the
mess
point.
It sounded like splattered cavities. That's what it was supposed to sound like, It was a
But
mess.
I was like 8 or 9 when it came out, so I didn't hear it
No
until
excuse.
I was 1.
12, 13 years later, so I didn't give a fuck about it then.
Yeah, I was 1. I did not listen to it.
But I think Scum sucks too, so...
Oh,
I like Scum, but I first heard Reek of Putrefaction in 2005, I think. Right, I had gotten my hands on Heartwork and was absolutely blown away, and said, "Oh, I should start over at the beginning of these guys' releases." And I heard Reek, and I was not ready for it, and it disturbed me so much. And when I say disturbed, I mean I was so disappointed with it that I didn't go back and listen to Symphonies of Sickness or Necrotism for at least 5 years, maybe longer than that.
I'll throw one out here. I don't hate Swan Song.
I don't hate it
I don't either.
I actually quite like Swan Song. I will accept that it's a more commercialized version of Heartwork, but I think there's a snarkiness and a sarcasm to that album that I don't think Jeff Walker really duplicated anywhere else in his career. I mean, it's almost as if he hates himself for writing the songs on that album. And I don't know, I've always thought there was more to it than people gave it credit for. I mean, it's not as good as Necroticism or Heartwork by any means. Those are both classics, but I think it's a blast.
I think that humor is all the way...
What'd you say, Ian?
Oh, I think that humor is all the way throughout everything that Carcass has done, really. I mean,
I agree, but...
to defend those early grind albums like Scum and Reek, I think that people go into that expecting a really serious listen. And they don't go into expecting that it's a really, really funny album.
I guess I just want something that's entertaining, and I've never really found either of those entertaining. Whereas, like, Brutal Truth's debut is a really, really great metal album, regardless of its history. It's still a great metal album to listen to, and I'm not sure Napalm Death, Scum, or Reek really are that relevant outside of their own history anymore. They're more historic documents than they are pieces of music at this point.
I can kind of agree with that. Time's really taken a toll on Scum in particular, but if you dig into it, there's a bunch of stuff that they're doing to like kind of upset the 80s metal narrative. There's a guitar solo from Roderick on there that's only 2 notes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shit like that. It's just like hilarious.
And as a time capsule, it's amazing. The careers that those first 2 Napalm Death albums launched is just staggering.
Undoubtedly.
But that's a topic for another podcast.
Agreed.
Yeah, the shock level of Lee Dorian going from Napalm Death to Cathedral was phenomenal.
All right, jumping back to Surgical Steel, I'll just throw out there the lead single from the album, Captive Bolt Pistol. Worst song on the album? Anyone else agree with me on that?
Are we not?
Oh, I think it's
the intro.
I think it's a decent tune, but I think it's the weakest track on the album.
I think the title track may actually be the weakest track on the album, the weakest real track on the album. But I think Captive Bolt Pistol is a perfectly fine song. I don't understand why people are calling it weak, per se. I think it's perfectly fun and listenable. It's definitely more of a swan songish song than a lot of the stuff on the album.
I'd say it definitely works better within the album's context than it does as a standalone single. but it's good in the same. I mean, it's savvy that they released that first because it does exactly what Carcass does in like 3.5 minutes. It thrashes, it grooves a bit, it's got a killer solo, and Jeff Walker's vocals are disgusting. Thank you.
His vocals are so awesome on the new album. I mean,
absolutely.
That was the biggest surprise to me is how good his voice is.
I was blown away.
It sounds like this could have been recorded in 1996, right after Hard Work, and that's what's so pleasing to the ears is that it sounds good to fans because it sounds like the band has not missed a step in 17 years of not doing a goddamn thing. Also, Master Butcher's Apron is one of the best fucking songs of the year. So there's my opinion of the album.
That's my favorite song on that album.
That's my favorite song on the album. It's just.
But I'm looking forward to spending a good deal more time with it. I really haven't been able to sit with it, but that song jumped right at me.
My favorite track is definitely Noncompliance to ASTM F89912 standard. Which, regardless of the ridiculous title, Noncompliance, it hooks me the same way that Heartwork did when I first heard that.
Yeah, that's one of my other favorite tunes. They completely kick ass.
All right, so I'm going.
Ooh, I got something funny to say about the album that is going to put something that you guys are going to hate.
Okay.
Right in your heads. There's one big chord progression in that last song, Mount of Execution, that sounds like it's the background to an arena-era Megadeth solo. And it sounds like it should have Dave soloing over it, and then Marty or someone else soloing over it, going back and forth until it becomes redundant. And now you're going to listen to it and not being able to get that out of your head, and I'm going to ruin the new Carcass album for you.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't want to think about Dave Mustaine when I'm listening to anything, really. Even when I'm listening to Megadeth, I don't want to think about Dave Mustaine.
Yeah, he's a douche.
So let's take a listen to the Master Butcher's Apron off of Surgical Steel.
The sun never sets, the blood never dries. Their souls sacrifice, the other butchers maligned. The sun never sets, the blood never dries. Lest we forget. The sun never sets, sinners never dry. This death was bloodshed on the waxing knives. For your sons you never wept, the blood never dries. The fruitless sacrifice of the master butchers.
You're listening to the Last Rites podcast.
Never trusted in the dark, pecuniary villain, yet getting well through rapine and plunder. Like madness, colonizing, diseases, contaminates, expansionist play to pillage and conquer. The uniocracy, the assaulter. The callous crazy, the assaulter.
So the topic that I would like to pick up, having listened to Carcass and having talked about Gorguts, is the topic of comebacks in heavy metal. 2013 has been a huge year for bands coming back. We have Carcass with their first album in 17 years. We have Gorguts coming back after 12 years. We have Black Sabbath coming back with their original, mostly original lineup at least, coming back their first album with Ozzy Osbourne on vocals in a shit ton of years. Now I gotta look it up.
It was almost right. 30, I think.
30 years.
It was more than 30. It's longer than I've been alive.
34 years.
35, I think.
35 years since Never Say Die.
Never Say Die, yeah.
In 1978, and that was the last time that Ozzy sang for Black Sabbath. And here we are, 2013, with an album called 13, which is their 13th release in 2013. And despite it having every chance to be a pile of shit, was actually a halfway decent album. And there were a lot of other bands that came back in 2013. Byzantine came back, Extol came back, Summoning came back, Witchcross came back with their first album since 1984. Any bands that you guys want to name that had comeback albums in?
Definitely Satan.
Satan. That's right.
All of them, that's my
Satan.
My favorite.
That Satan album's awesome.
Satan came back.
I would have killed to have gone to see that show in Montreal. I saw some pictures and heard some people talk about it, and apparently it was just a fantastic show that they played in Montreal.
I think that, and this wasn't so much a comeback because they never went away, but that last Cathedral album is one that has stuck with me decently this year. It's not as good as their first three. It never will be or needs to be, but it was both a good return to form and a kind of a great way for them to say goodbye all at the same time. And good God, it was heavy as shit.
I agree with that. I'm gonna go ahead and call a comeback though any band that's been away longer than 6 years, and then puts out an album. That's a comeback, since 6 is a very metal number.
Let's see.
Who else was there this year? I know Summoning was 7 years since Oathbound with Old Morning's Dawn.
I can't think of any. Let me just kind of run through something here and see if I can find somebody else.
Yeah, I don't know if there were so many.
I may have hit all of them, but I mean it's a pretty significant number, and most of them at least have been pretty good.
Yeah.
Speaking of comebacks, Captain, did you hear that Attacker album?
No. Should I?
Yeah, it's really good.
It is, huh?
Yeah, it's really solid.
I'm looking it up right now. Oh, wait, let me see. Let me look at the cover.
I'm betting it's 8.
No, I have not heard that.
Wow.
I want to, though. That's a cool, talk about cool album covers,
Another 7 years. That's a comeback. Yeah, have to check it out.
I tell you what I'm excited about as far as comebacks go, even though the album hasn't dropped yet, the man has come back and he's playing live shows, is King Diamond. That is much rejoicing about that.
Have you seen any of the live videos on tour yet? Not on tour,
yeah.
But I guess he was playing some festivals. Dude, super strong, right? Like
absolutely.
The man does not age. His voice is absolutely perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah. Totally stoked.
All right. Hello.
I'm so excited for it.
Definitely. Has anyone heard the Catatonia acoustic album?
Yeah, it is absolutely needless.
Okay.
I love Catatonia, and I have no desire to listen to it. They've been boring for a couple albums now anyway, so...
I love Catatonia, and I thought that Night is a New Day was a fantastic album.
I did too. I thought it was
surprisingly...
not surprisingly solid. I mean, everything that they do is pretty solid, but yeah, I thought that received some unfair flack as well. I mean, who am I to kind of get in the way of a band that's like really jonesing for some pop? But this new acoustic album is just the sound of a band that's really pissed that Unplugged doesn't exist anymore.
No.
It's just, I understand it's crowdfunded. Yeah, it's crowdfunded, so it's not like it's it's coming out of the fans' pockets. If fans wanted it,
if
they
it's
wanted it.
Oh, then that's great.
Did you guys see that Varg is trying to get crowdfunding to fund his lawsuit against the French government?
Yeah,
I'll give him money for that.
He will get it too.
I bought 7 of his albums. I'm not giving any more fucking money. That dude's an asshole.
I love Varg. I love him because he's an asshole.
Yeah.
It's just in Keith loves assholes.
That's right.
He actually stated a somewhat eloquent case for why he needs funding to get back at the government.
Oh, he's a very eloquent person.
At the very end, he talks about why he hates Jews, though, and it's just like, dude, dude, could have left that out.
He's very eloquent, but he's also, I mean, pretty off his rocker. I consider him a musical genius. I know some people think that his music is shit, but everyone is allowed to have their opinion.
I don't, people have liked his latest stuff, Fallen I thought was bad. There's stuff on that Skiptar that I liked, but overall I don't really find a lot of depth in any of the new stuff he's put out.
Well, let's use that to talk about comebacks. And the question that I want to ask is, are comebacks good for heavy metal or are they bad for heavy metal?
Well, I'm just going to say good albums are good for heavy metal. There's a lot of bullshit comeback albums. There's a lot of bullshit normal albums. Just good music's good for good music. I guess comebacks can be good for tours, for small bands that want to latch onto a big comeback tour. That's the one way. But if a comeback puts out a bullshit album, then fuck them.
Speaking of comebacks, maybe Ian might be the only other one who's listened to it. Have you listened to the new Legend at all?
Yeah.
No.
What do you think of that?
It's okay. If I take it as just like a Legend album, yeah, I mean, it's fine.
It's one of those, like the first time I spun it, when I first put it on, it was, there was interesting stuff. I haven't gone back to it yet. I'm looking forward to, like, getting a little more into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird to, as a fan, to really dig into the comeback issue. I mean, I was bummed out about the Witch Cross.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty poor, but
it's not very good.
Yeah, it's like, but then again, like, who am I to get in the way of those guys trying to get money?
Right.
It's like, even though I don't like that album. If I had a band that put out an album that was on par with that, I'd be super stoked.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah.
Now, what about when a band decides that they need to come back or whatever, and it ends up being absolutely horrible? And let's name Morbid Angel as the example. When when you can say, well, a band is, soiling their legacy or whatever, phraseology you want to use.
That album was fantastic.
And of course, we're talking about the Double Disc Remix album.
Yes.
That remix album is great, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys actually listen to the remix?
I have not listened to the remix. I actually have the album.
It destroys the album. It destroys.
I have the album in my iTunes as the whatever the name of the album is, Illid whatever EP, and I only have the actual death metal tracks in it, and it's a halfway decent EP.
Now, when you heard that album, did that change anything about how you felt about like their first 3 albums at all?
No, it did not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way, where everything's just I want to section everything off. Like, I think one of the prime examples would be Slayer's back in the studio.
Right.
Or should I say Slay, because like there's 2 close with them now. But
talking about bands that won't quit, that ought to, is some slightly a different topic. But it's interesting. It's like what widely regarded as the first heavy metal band is Black Sabbath, and we've got them back again this year. I mean, we're probably the only genre of music around right now where the first bands of the genre are still around, they're still making music, they're still touring. Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, those three bands are still going and are responsible for so much of the existence of the genre at all. It's pretty unique in music.
I don't agree. I mean, you see that in indie rock, you see that in punk. I mean, Black Flag is going to be touring soon, both iterations.
There's quite a bit of hip hop.
Hip hop, oh yeah, of course. I mean, how many versions of Far Side are there now?
I suppose hip hop is one of the only major genres that's younger than
Run DMC is back on Adidas commercials.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
Kinda
I don't watch commercials and I don't listen to hip hop, so.
Well, in metal, if you go, you can spend 10 minutes and go back and just grab a list of new wave of British heavy metal bands from back in the day, and you will notice that probably over 75% of the ones that you look up are still listed as active and will probably be putting out albums in the not too distant future.
Saxon has like 30 albums.
How many?
Saxon has like 25 or 30 albums. It's insane. They've been putting out an album every year since 1978.
Yeah, they more so than a lot of bands need a special tip of the hat because they've always been active, pretty much always active, and they've been really consistent over the years.
Yeah, the latest one's really good.
Yeah. Love that band. Love them.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no one here who thinks that comebacks are actually, a net bad thing for heavy metal. They sort of drag us back into the past.
You can get excited about an album coming out from a band that hasn't been active in the last 10 years or whatever. You can hear samples so far in advance that, if you don't like the samples, you don't pick it up. No big deal. Who cares? It's no big deal.
And you don't feel that it dilutes the time that we would spend to new bands.
No.
No.
Not at all.
If you choose to look at it that way.
Well, I mean, that's, sort of the counter argument. It's like, well, we've got, Carcass coming back. We've got Black Sabbath coming back. Aside from the fact that whether the albums are good or not, because obviously the Carcass album is fantastic and I'm going to be spending a lot of time listening to it. The Black Sabbath album is all right. And I've listened to it.
I think it's better than all right. I really like it. And it's weird. I've talked about this a little bit. When that album came out, I listened to it and I said, this is really a pretty good album. I'm really pretty happy with this. And then I kind of put it aside, and then I saw the show and saw those songs from the stage, and it just reinvigorated them for me. And I've been listening to that album basically, almost on a daily basis. And I think it's actually a really strong album. I like it.
Yeah, you would.
I know. You're right.
I think I get what Keith is saying in that it takes away from the personal experience you had when those bands were around. Like if you discovered them first,
mm-hmm.
And it's entirely possible.
And I mean, if you're a young guy like me, it's like, well, what are my bands? How am I? I'm just trying. No, I'm not asking you that. I'm trying to say,
poor albums have never diluted like old stuff from the bands for me. If somebody chooses a different direction or whatever, that it's going to appeal to someone, but let's just take Megadeth as an example. The fact that I haven't liked anything of theirs basically since Rust in Peace, I still was able to listen to Rust in Peace and Peace Sells and be totally happy with it. It's since Dave Mustaine has come out and become such a huge dong bag that's made it harder for me to listen to the old stuff. I don't, they can release whatever the hell they want. Doesn't bother me at all.
All right. Well, that's that question pretty much slammed out. So let's play a song. We will play track by Satan, who came back this year after 20-some years absent from the scene. It was 20 years, wasn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, it might have been a little bit longer. It might have been like 25. When was the last time they put out an album? It was like 86, right?
Depends on how you define their activity too.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see, 13, 20, yeah, at least I think it's 25 years.
25 years, all right. So let's take a listen to that song.
Thank
Last Rites.
Incantations for my soul. Now, as the sleep of death will rise, and at last I close my eyes, a novice waiting for my soul. So I'm delivered up to Ra. My final journey takes me far into the spirit world. Spells from the book of the dawn, words on the scroll, written in Pharaoh's blood, sanctified. Incantations for my soul. It's in the valley of the kings. It's written in the sands of time. My secrets are within my tomb. A curse on those who break the seal.
You're listening to Incantations by Satan off their 2013 comeback album, Life Sentence. I'm podcast producer Keith Ross on behalf of Ian, Michael, and Zach, thanking you all for tuning into this first episode of the relaunched Last Rites podcast. We have many plans and features coming up for you in the future, so stay tuned. Get connected on Twitter, jump into the comments on the website, Last Rites, lastrit.es, and on Twitter, Your Last Rites. Thank you for listening. We'll be back.